Something that didn't get mentioned in the movie that I think is worth mentioning, because it's really interesting, is the McDonald's brothers did give a lot of people tours of that kitchen. And one of the people they gave a tour to was a guy named Dan Bell. And Dan Bell took their system and applied it to Mexican food, and that became Taco Bell.
Oh, wow.
So they actually did spur a bunch of other actually successful businesses that just came in and basically took their business model. And they welcomed it. He was a friend of theirs. So they're interesting little fact not many people know.
Yeah, a man named Collins as well tried to take the same kind of thing and turn it into, went and viewed their kitchen and said, wow, this is wonderful, and tried to create a business from it. He didn't do so well. But the In-N-Out thing, we're from Massachusetts, and we visited an In-N-Out our first time here in LA. And I'm driving through, looking through the windows, and I said, this is really weird.
This feels familiar. This feels very familiar.
The 1950s of what our grandfather had actually done. Really kind of strange.
I just thought I'd love to add to, the beauty of watching a movie that all these people came together to make. When I was watching it last night, is the other themes or the other undercurrents of story that are invented. And with this writing and filmmaking and these three incredible performances, one of the things that struck me similarly to Scorsese's film Silence this year is both films really hold this theme of this other question, which we're talking around as well, which is it enough just to know what you've accomplished? Or do you need the world to know? And both, like in that film, which are two men with very different points of view, these two themes resonated so powerfully. And the last speech to himself that you're preparing as Michael's acting it, to see that moment, that glimmer in this man's eye that he might have a conscience or a remorse, and then he's kind of over it, is like one of the most amazing things I've ever seen an actor do. It's hysterical and devastating at the same moment, because you're just hoping there's empathy, but you never think that maybe there is a glimmer of empathy and then quickly overcome. Seems more terrifying than someone who would never have it at all. But the question that I'm just so thrilled to see in a movie is this question you so beautifully navigated, and I'm amazed by it. That, even for myself, I'm like, this is so unjust. Your family should, how are we not all suing now to get this 1%? This is insane. As opposed to this extraordinary legacy that your grandfather and these men, invented this unbelievable new model, and your family knows that. And how we always need more and more followers and more everything. It's just, it's terrifying to consider. And I'm really grateful for the movie to ask that.
I do want to open up to the audience for questions. Let's just start in the front row here.
You brought up a very important topic of the quality that the McDonald brothers started. That same quality we see resonating through your work, John Lee, and the triumvirate of your cinematographer, John, your production designer, Michael, and your costumer, Daniel. Can you talk about that beautiful marriage and how it came to fruition in this film, particularly John's dazzling camera work within the original McDonald's?
John's ears are burning somewhere right now. He's probably going to burst through the door and say, "Dazzling? Did I hear dazzling?" No, it's a great team, and the more you work on things, and we all have similar mindsets about things, and so the more we talk about them, the more we prep, it makes a very tight schedule like this go more smoothly. And you can also ask the really important questions when you're in production, as opposed to, we didn't count on this wall being here, it's going to take 2 hours to move it. Those kind of things don't happen. Plus, they're all artists, and first and foremost, they are storytellers. When you're talking to Daniel Orlandi about a costume, it's not just, well, this is pretty, or this is period, and this is cool. It is like, this feels like it would be in her closet, and I can picture her buying it. And I think that resonates with actors as well when you get that kind of support. And with Michael, I mean, he did, in terms of physical production, the heavy lifting on this, having to build on a limited budget 2 different standalone McDonald's that were not only sets, but kitchens that we cooked in. And the difficulty of that with gimbaled windows and removable glass and building permits and everything else was kind of astounding. And every day you would see him, and He had lost more hair, it seemed. But he always had a smile on his face and always said, this is the good stuff.
And he ingeniously turned those 2 McDonald's into 20 McDonald's, right?
Yeah. Well, we had a plan for the 1 Golden Arches to become many Golden Arches, and we said, what can we do besides CG background? And the thing we could do was we would choose, and this goes to John Schwartzman, we would choose different axes to shoot on because it looks different from every different side. And so we used multiple axes for those things, and in addition to that, changed the parking plan because all the McDonald's parking wasn't the same. So sometimes it would be this way, sometimes it would be this way, sometimes it would be along the side, and just parking cars in a different configuration helped cheat the eye a little bit so that you could get away with the background. But John is a storyteller as well. It's all about character. And so we're constantly reminding each other what the story is, what the character wants to do and is doing, and that's a great place to come from. Because nobody's trying to show off, everybody's trying to serve the story. And I think that, I mean, all these actors, I think, would say the same thing about these guys, that they're teammates.
I always said that, you know, that's what you learn pretty early when you start making a movie. You know, at first you think, well, that's that person's department. This person wants to do their thing, and you know, that's how that's going to work. I don't want to say it's rare, but it's actually not rare. There are people who think in terms of what's the story, what's my job, how do I move the story along, and man, these guys are like the quintessential example of that.
Be great.
First of all, I'd just like to say that this movie is like the epitome of capitalism. I think it should be taught in business schools across the nation. You really embodied the character. I mean, full on. It was perfect. I'd like to know how you relate to the character Ray Kroc. Do you share his mentality, quote unquote, your competitor's drowning, you go stick a hose in his mouth? And also, I'd like to double question to the French brothers as well. How do you relate to your grandfather? But I will start with you, Michael.
I actually have stuck a hose in someone's mouth. I think that's enough said.
But Nick survived.
No, I was just listening when John was speaking. I thought, well, I honestly, I don't have to say a thing. He nailed it. Look, you know, let me see if I can find another way to say this after having talked about this a lot. He, in a lot of ways, and we talked about this from the get-go, we both said, there's a lot to admire in a person like Ray Kroc, and specifically Ray Kroc. And John pointed out even more reasons why, you know, considering the time and, you know, I mean, in history when this occurred. What knocks me out, this guy did it back then, 52 now, you know, that's not that big a deal. Well, it was 52, right? 52 then was a different story. And you know, I'm a fan of hard work, you know. I don't remember, I don't think there was a time in my life when my dad didn't have 2 jobs, and we all worked, all the kids worked and everything. So I am not a fan of sadistic greed. I don't think I'm alone here. But it's, man, as an actor, it sure is intriguing and hard. You know, it's a magnet. You know, looking at these guys, and I think you would agree, right? When you see stuff like that, you go, man, I don't know why I want to go do this. I couldn't wait for the day we shot that scene, because those words are out of Ray Kroc's mouth, by the way. If you were drowning, I'd stick a hose down your throat, and I thought, man, I hope I nail that. I can't wait to do that scene. That's either I have severe problems, or I just like what I do for a living. And that's a weird job that you look forward to that. You know, I admit it. And it's, I admit it, but I just was fascinated. The more I thought about it, I was fascinated by what kind of person does this. What kind of, and this, I'll shut up here in a second, but he stuck by his word. And by the way, it's not that he had this, John had the same intention, which was, I'm not backing off. I'm not going to back off because I just don't have an interest. It doesn't make me superior. I just don't have an interest in anything I do like that. But I don't. You can find a zillion other people who could do this better than I can, and if that's what you want. I'm just fascinated. The more I thought about this and did it, and the more I hear all these things that people bring up, it's actually more interesting than I even thought it was when I was doing it, frankly.